This is the leak they didn't want you to see. There's a rumored document making waves among federal emergency planning circles, and it's got survivalists everywhere talking. According to this unconfirmed but highly debated leak, there's a list of 8 specific canned foods flagged for possible government seizure during a national crisis. These aren't just your average pantry items. These are crucial survival staples with long shelf lives, high nutritional value, and a direct impact on public morale and logistical supply chains. Could these be the foods that decide who thrives and who struggles in a major emergency? Whether the list is confirmed or not, the fact that it even exists reflects some serious behind-the-scenes concerns about food shortages, civil unrest, and centralized control in times of chaos. Stick around, because we're breaking down what this means for you, why these specific foods matter, and how to prepare for what could be coming next. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can stay ahead of the game. Your preparedness starts here. 1. Canned bread. Canned bread might sound like a relic from a bygone era, but it's gaining attention for an entirely different reason. Once a quirky staple of New England shelves, this dense, molasses-rich bread has been thrust into the spotlight with a disturbing new status. It's no longer just a nostalgic oddity. Canned bread has become a target for crisis seizure by federal agencies. What makes canned bread so unique is its practicality. No kneading, no baking, no fuss. It's shelf-stable for years, can be eaten straight from the can, and delivers calorie-packed sustenance. These qualities not only make it an ideal pantry item, but also a prime choice for emergency needs. And that's exactly why it could end up ripped from your shelves when disaster strikes. Historically, canned bread earned its place during hard times. First produced nearly a century ago by B&M, this dark, sweet bread became a lifeline during the Great Depression and World War II. When fresh ingredients were scarce and flour was rationed, this pre-packaged bread offered predictable nutrition for struggling families. Decades later, it's still quietly sold in regional stores, a humble vestige of the past. But modern emergencies have brought canned bread back into the spotlight. During the COVID-19 pandemic, when grocery aisles were wiped out, people rediscovered this canned staple. Its ability to last for years without refrigeration or mold made it a no-brainer for crisis stockpiles. For preppers, it's long been a hidden gem. Unfortunately, it seems the federal government noticed too. Leaked reports suggest canned bread is now on a short list of foods earmarked for seizure during a major crisis. Its readiness to eat, long shelf life, and compact nature make it irresistible for government rationing plans. Whether it's a blackout, a war-driven grain shortage, or another pandemic, agencies are said to be eyeing this product for redistribution. For individuals who've stocked up on canned bread to prepare for the worst, this is a wake-up call. What's been a trusted emergency food could now be at risk of being confiscated. Once a comforting piece of New England tradition, canned bread is now more than survival food. It's a symbol of how quickly your stockpile can become someone else's solution. 2. Canned cheese. Canned cheese might seem like the stuff of survivalist dreams, but it's got a very real role in crisis preparedness. And according to leaked reports, it's now flagged for possible government seizure in the event of a major emergency. Here's why. Unlike the cheese in your fridge, canned cheese doesn't need refrigeration. Take Bigga canned cheese, for instance. Originally from Australia, this shelf-stable cheddar comes in a tin and can last for years when stored properly. It's not a fancy food item, but what it lacks in glamour, it makes up for in reliability. For preppers and survivalists, it's a goldmine. When the grid fails or supply chains collapse, fresh dairy evaporates fast. But canned cheese stays, bridging the gap between bland survival rations and meals that actually feel like food. You can grate it over rice, melt it on pasta, or just slice it up with crackers. For families facing disaster, that resemblance to normal can make a huge psychological difference. And it's not just about comfort. Canned cheese is calorie-dense, packed with protein and fats that are crucial in emergencies. It's this unique mix of nutrition and shelf stability that's reportedly landed it on the leaked government list of foods marked for redistribution during major crises. History offers clues about this move. During World War II, cheese was rationed and shipped in canned form to feed soldiers and civilians alike. It was considered both sustenance and a morale booster. Fast forward to today, and it's no surprise that emergency planners see its value again. For preppers, though, the news feels like a wake-up call. Many who stockpiled canned cheese did so to escape dependence on public systems during disasters. The idea that authorities could confiscate their supply hits a nerve. Canned cheese might not seem like a big deal now, But in a crisis, when it's off the shelves and controlled by the government, it could turn into one of the most valuable items you can no longer get your hands on. 3. Canned water. Canned water might not seem remarkable at first, but in a crisis, it's worth its weight in gold. Water isn't just important, it's everything. You can survive weeks without food, but without water, you've only got a few days. That's why canned water's presence on a leaked government seizure list has people talking. At first, it sounds bizarre. Why would water be confiscated? But start piecing together how vulnerable water systems really are, and it becomes clear. Most people stockpile water in plastic jugs or bottles, but plastic is a weak solution. It doesn't last. Over time, it can leach chemicals, crack under heat, and allow air to seep in, compromising the water inside. Canned water, on the other hand, changes the game. Aluminum cans are airtight, light-proof, and heat-resistant, making them unmatched for long-term storage. Companies like Blue Can produce canned water with a 50-year shelf life. Think about that. While your plastic jug is falling apart, canned water remains sterile, pressurized, and ready. That's why preppers and survivalists have quietly been stockpiling canned water for years, but they're not the only ones. Disaster agencies have taken notice. Major companies like Anheuser-Busch have even switched gears during emergencies, canning water instead of beer for relief efforts. Their partnerships with FEMA and the Red Cross have made canned water a staple of disaster response. Here's the warning, though. That same infrastructure that puts canned water into relief efforts also makes it vulnerable to seizure. If water infrastructure collapses due to something like a cyber attack, earthquake, or drought, the government has an established system to redirect essential supplies. Warehouses can be cleared out. Retail sales can be shut down. For individuals who've stashed canned water, that puts a target on your supply. If rationing kicks in, those blue cans in your basement might be among the first things redistributed for the greater good. Water won't just be a commodity, it'll be a controlled resource. And if this crisis comes, the fight for canned water won't just be about thirst. It will be about survival. 4. Canned sardines and other oily fish. Sardines, mackerel, and herring have long been overshadowed on supermarket shelves, but in a survival scenario, they're game changers. These compact, oily fish may not have universal appeal, but they're nutritional powerhouses. Packed with protein, omega-3s, and essential nutrients, they're built to last, don't require refrigeration, and travel well. That's why reports suggest they've been added to a government crisis seizure list. Here's why they're so critical. When disaster strikes, fresh protein sources vanish fast. Livestock is difficult to transport, fresh fish spoils in hours, and even canned meats run the risk of labor or factory shortages. Sardines and other oily fish, however, endure. Their shelf life extends years, making them an ideal candidate for relief efforts. This isn't a new revelation. Historically, canned sardines were the backbone of emergency rations for soldiers and explorers. They were carried on Shackleton's Antarctic expedition and served to troops during both World Wars. These tins provided vital calories and protein in the harshest conditions, far from supply chains or fresh food sources. Fast forward to today and you'll find eerie parallels. During the COVID-19 lockdowns, products like tuna and sardines flew off shelves as people panicked about food security. Now, ongoing geopolitical issues in critical fishing zones and unpredictable maritime trade have ramped up the value of canned fish, driving prices higher and securing the attention of emergency planners. But from the government's perspective, confiscating or redistributing these protein reserves during a crisis is simply a strategic move to stabilize food supplies. A single tin of sardines can sustain a child or round out a critical emergency meal, making these items far more than just pantry essentials. For preppers, this raises a red flag. Stockpiling sardines used to be about personal preparedness, but now keeping a stash could put you on the radar. If disasters hit, planners might turn your private protein source into a public good. And suddenly those overlooked cans of oily fish become far more than food. They're survival currency, no longer under your control. 5. Canned coffee. Coffee might not rank as a survival necessity at first glance, but take it away and that loss feels enormous. More than a simple morning ritual, coffee is vital for how many of us function. Without it, society would face more than sleepy mornings. We'd see mass caffeine withdrawal, plummeting morale, and even a breakdown in focus among essential workers during a crisis. The significance of coffee in emergencies isn't new. During World War II, coffee rationing became unavoidable when global trade routes were disrupted. Despite the chaos, the U.S. government prioritized coffee, allotting citizens 1 pound every 5 weeks. Why? Because even in war, it boosted morale. Today, coffee is even more vulnerable. Over 90% of the U.S. supply comes from countries like Brazil, Colombia, and Ethiopia. If global unrest, embargoes, or climate disasters disrupt these imports, shelves will empty fast. Combine this with a fragile supply chain and limited domestic coffee production, and the risk of shortages becomes real. Leaked reports suggesting canned coffee may be seized during crises make sense when you consider its strategic value. Caffeine is more than a luxury when disaster strikes. It fuels relief workers like doctors, firefighters, and truck drivers in high-pressure situations. Coffee stabilizes the people, stabilizing the crisis. That's what makes it indispensable. Canned coffee is the ultimate crisis staple. It's airtight, long-lasting, and portable. Unlike fresh beans, it stays potent for years, perfect for emergency management plans. Governments confiscating or redirecting private stockpiles during severe shortages isn't paranoia. Historically, coffee was packed into military rations for the exact same reasons. Soldiers depended on it for energy and focus, and now it seems civilian supplies might face similar controls in modern crises. For preppers, coffee isn't just about morale, it's currency. A can of instant coffee could hold immense trade value in a world without stores or deliveries. That's why stockpiling canned coffee is standard for anyone serious about preparedness. But it's also why it might become a target. Under stress, even non-essentials like coffee shift into the realm of control. It fuels workers, calms chaos, and in the hands of government planners becomes a tool to balance the fragile fabric of society. Canned butter. Canned butter might seem like a novelty, something you'd expect to find in a prepper's stash or on a survival blog. But in a crisis, this overlooked item transforms into a lifeline. According to leaked reports, canned butter holds such strategic value that it's been flagged for potential government seizure during emergencies. Why? It's one of the few shelf-stable sources of fat available when disaster strikes. Picture this: a prolonged emergency hits. Power outages sweep across cities. Supply chains crumble. Refrigerated goods vanish within days. For most, butter becomes a thing of the past. But canned butter defies that reality. It doesn't need refrigeration and is designed for long-term storage. Crack open a can and you have rich, creamy butter ready to spread, cook with, or use as a calorie-packed energy source. Fat is essential during a crisis. It provides long-lasting energy and is crucial for survival, especially when fresh food is scarce. Historically, governments have recognized butter's importance. During World War II, it was heavily rationed across Allied countries due to its caloric density. Families received small allowances, often resorting to substitutes like margarine. Now, emergency planners are eyeing canned butter with similar urgency. One of the most well-known brands is Red Feather, hailing from New Zealand. This pasteurized butter boasts a shelf life of up to a decade when stored properly. It doesn't just offer sustenance, it offers a psychological lift. Adding a dollop of butter to bland staples like rice or bread can make survival feel a little more human. That's why preppers swear by it, not just for the calories, but also for the spirit it brings. However, its rise in popularity has also made it a target. A leaked memo suggests that in a national emergency, canned butter could be one of the first items seized for redistribution. The reasoning? A single family doesn't need dozens of cans while others go without. Preppers who've quietly stocked up on it may find their reserves suddenly classified as a public resource. Canned butter has crossed the line from comfort food to survival gold. If crises deepen, it might not just be your morale booster. It could become a government-controlled asset. 7. Canned bacon. Canned bacon might sound like a gimmick, but in a crisis, it's no less than a treasure. Sure, the idea of bacon in a can might raise a few eyebrows during calm times. It feels like something you'd bring on a camping trip for kicks, or see featured in a prepper's online haul. But behind the novelty lies a survival powerhouse that's even caught the attention of emergency planners. Leaked reports suggest canned bacon is on the government's alert list for potential crisis seizure, and it's easy to see why. Bacon, as we usually know it, relies on refrigeration. It's perishable and doesn't scream long-term survival food. However, when bacon is pre-cooked, drained, and tightly sealed in a durable can, it transforms. Brands like Yoder's have perfected this process, rolling up 50 to 60 slices of bacon inside each can, separated by wax paper to maintain its texture. These cans are airtight, oxygen-free, and sturdy enough to keep the bacon edible for a decade or longer when stored properly. And the kicker? It's just as good as fresh. You can eat it straight from the can or heat it up with no hassle. Now imagine a full-blown crisis where power is out, supply lines are broken, and food options are limited to repetitive, bland meals. A can of bacon enters that bleak picture, and suddenly everything shifts. It's not just food. It's flavor, comfort, and energy all packed together. Canned bacon isn't just calories and protein, it's morale in a can, delivering a sense of normalcy when nothing else feels right. This isn't a new idea. During World War II, U.S. soldiers were provided canned bacon in their field rations as a psychological boost on top of its nutritional value. Famous explorer Ernest Shackleton also packed it for Antarctic expeditions because of its durability and energy density. Modern governments recognize this potential. Emergency planners see canned bacon as a vital resource for long-term crises. According to the leaked memo, large stockpiles of canned bacon may be subject to confiscation or redistribution during nationwide emergencies to support relief workers and the general population. For preppers, this raises alarms. What started as a quirky, long-lasting staple might now put their private stashes in jeopardy. That greasy, smoky slice of bacon has leveled up, from comfort food to a strategic resource worth protecting. 8. Canned whole chicken. Out of all the foods flagged for potential government seizure, canned whole chicken might be the most surprising. The idea of a fully cooked chicken preserved in gelatin and sealed in a can feels like a bizarre novelty, but in a crisis, it becomes a game changer. Products like Sweet Sue's canned whole chicken have gained attention in prepper communities, often treated as oddities on forums or YouTube videos. When opened, the bird slithers out, soaked in broth, fully cooked and tender. It might raise eyebrows under normal circumstances, but in a prolonged emergency, it's no joke. Here's why canned whole chicken matters. Most of us rely on fresh or frozen meat. If a large-scale disaster disrupts power grids or food supply chains, that fresh chicken in your fridge will expire within days. This isn't a new problem. Over a century ago, companies like B&M produced canned meats, including whole chickens, to address food security during uncertain times. Today, when avian flu outbreaks or supply chain breakdowns threaten poultry supplies, these cans are arguably more valuable than ever. Each 50-ounce can can feed an entire family with no need for refrigeration or extensive prep. It's ready to eat straight out of the can, and if you have fuel, it can be heated for a morale-boosting meal. Its long shelf life and high protein content make it a powerhouse for relief efforts. It's no wonder leaked crisis documents suggest canned whole chicken is a key item for emergency redistribution. For shelters, makeshift hospitals, or disaster response teams, these cans are incredibly efficient. They deliver maximum nutrition with minimal effort. That same efficiency makes them a top target for seizure during national emergencies. Preppers who stockpile canned chicken as a backup might find these staples turned into a public resource. What seems like a quirky product today might be one of the most strategic survival foods tomorrow. And when disasters strike, even novelty foods are no longer just for laughs. They're essential. 9. Canned corned beef. When refrigeration fails and fresh meat disappears, canned corned beef steps up as a survival heavyweight. That familiar trapezoid-shaped can with its twist key opening isn't just a relic of past crises. It's a powerhouse food that has endured wars, rationing, and supply chain failures for more than a century. Packed with dense calories, protein, and an impressive shelf life, canned corned beef thrives in conditions that would spoil other meats, doesn't require refrigeration, extensive prep, or special storage, making it a standout choice in any emergency. And that's precisely why it's reportedly featured on a leaked government crisis seizure list. From a historical perspective, its inclusion on this blacklist makes sense. During World War II, millions of tins of corned beef, or bully beef, were shipped to Allied nations as part of the Lend-Lease program. It helped nourish soldiers and civilians alike, providing much-needed sustenance when fresh meat was scarce. Fast forward to today, and corned beef's strategic value remains unchanged. Disaster planners know that in a crisis caused by power grid failures, cyber attacks, or natural disasters, canned corned beef becomes a lifeline. Unlike most foods, it doesn't rely on modern infrastructure to stay edible. It's ready to eat straight out of the can or can be used to boost meals like stews or rice dishes. The government's authority to seize and redirect supplies under the Defense Production Act solidifies the plausibility of canned corned beef landing on a crisis blacklist. Preppers who stockpile this long-lasting meat as part of their survival strategy may find themselves facing unexpected competition, not from store shortages, but from government intervention aimed at supplying relief efforts or redistribution. This isn't just about food security anymore. It's about having resources powerful enough to tip the balance during social instability. For preppers, canned corned beef may have been a symbol of preparedness, but in the eyes of emergency planners, it's an asset too valuable to ignore. 10. Canned eggs. Powdered eggs. Eggs might not be the first thing you think of as a crisis essential. Fragile shells and refrigeration don't exactly scream shelf-stable, but powdered eggs, sealed in sturdy cans, flip that perception entirely. Back in World War II, powdered eggs were a game-changer. The U.S. ramped up production to ship overseas, feeding rationed populations in Britain and troops on the move. A single tin could replace a dozen fresh eggs, used in everything from breakfasts to baking. It was a lifeline in a world where fresh eggs were too scarce to meet demand. Now the spotlight is back on powdered eggs. Recent bird flu outbreaks wiped out millions of egg-laying hens, sending egg prices skyrocketing and limiting availability overnight. That was a taste of what could happen in an extended crisis. Imagine weeks without power or transportation, where fresh eggs are a distant memory. Suddenly, those number 10 cans of powdered eggs become the most reliable source of protein and versatility for meals. Leaked reports suggest canned powdered eggs are on a government crisis seizure list, and it's not hard to see why. These cans don't need refrigeration, last for 10 years or more if stored well, and are perfect for feeding large groups. Shelters, military bases, hospitals, they depend on shelf-stable items like this during disasters. For preppers, this raises alarms. Stockpiling powdered eggs has long been a standard practice, with one can holding dozens of servings. But if emergency powers come into play, those personal reserves could be seen as public resources. That humble can of powdered eggs isn't just a prepper essential anymore. It's a strategic asset, making it a potential target in any large-scale crisis.